Friends, let me introduce Deacon Don Burt. Don and his wife Marcia serve in a unique but growing ministry in the Catholic Church. This is ministry to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans Catholics, or LGBT Catholics. The Catholic Catechism says that LGBT people must be treated with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. At the same time, the Catholic Church strongly opposes same-sex marriage. This is the reality in which Deacon Don and Marcia serve the LGBT people in their faith community. What does this look like? Don Burt is a deacon in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, ordained in 2015 and serving at St. Lawrence Martyr Catholic Church in Redondo Beach. Deacon Don and his wife Marcia started a ministry for LGBT Catholics called One Heart. It's a ministry for the LGBT community and for anyone who seeks inclusion, integration, and bridge building. I spent time with Don, Marcia, and the group, learning as much as I could about the LGBT community in the Catholic Church. What is One Heart LGBT ministry at St. Lawrence Martyr?
Okay, so One Heart is the ministry where we reach out and try to integrate. It begins with integration, to integrate the LGBT community into our faith community. James Martin talks about building bridges, and we're trying to build the bridge from our bank of the river to them, and say, you have a place here at St. Lawrence Martyr, that this is a place where you can feel welcome, where you can feel comfortable, and you can worship, and that's basically what we do.
I imagine that here in Redondo Beach and around and surrounding communities, you're getting people. What kind of Catholic or what kind of people, who comes to these meetings?
Yeah. As for what kind of Catholic, that seems to be the dividing line between two thought processes. There are a lot of people in this church, people of my generation and your generation and older, who feel that because they love differently from the way we do, that they are not Catholic at all, or not good Catholics, that they are sinners. Whereas the people in my ministry look at them as just people, as Catholics, just like you and me. Do they sin? Sure, but so do I, and so do you, and so does everybody. Nobody is worthy of the great gift that we get at Mass. And so to exclude one group just because their sin, perceived or otherwise, is somehow better or worse than the sins you commit is wrong. So the kind of people we attract to the ministry are members of the LGBT community, members of their family, friends, and just allies. We have a lot of people in our group who are not LGBT or do not have LGBT in their family, but just feel like this is a cause that's worthy to them. It's not exclusive to anybody. We can, if you just feel like you want to be a part of this group, you can. And so we do have a wide spectrum of membership in our group.
On your Facebook page, there is a drawing of two hands making a heart. Mm-hmm. And inside the heart, there's the statement, "I am a safe person for you to come out to."
Right.
What does that mean for you and other people involved in this ministry?
Well, to me, it's somewhat personal because I have a gay daughter. Kind of a side story is when we started the ministry, we didn't know we had a gay daughter. She came out to us about a year later. But, Jesus in the New Testament just tells us to do two things, to love God and to love our neighbor. That's all really, that's the thrust of his time on earth, was to love God, to love neighbor. And this is just an extension of that. They are just as much as my neighbor as anybody else. And even using, every time I use the word they, I can hear, bells going off saying, no, don't they, because we're excluding. They is very exclusive. The LGBT community is just as much my neighbor as anybody else. I am certainly not going to judge you if this is who God made you to be. So it becomes very important, and it becomes part of my ministry as a deacon to be a safe person that someone can come out to. It's not my job to say, oh, I'm going to go tell your parents, or you're a sinner, go to confession, or stop doing that. That's not what I believe Jesus came here to tell us, to teach us. He came here to teach us to love one another, like I said earlier, to love one another, and love is an embracing gesture, not a finger-pointing gesture. So being a safe person is important to me. It's integral to my being a deacon.
Reminds me of another post on your Facebook page, One Heart LGBT Ministry. There's a cartoon, a drawing of Jesus, and he's trying to get into a church.
Yeah.
And there's a whole group of people pushing against the door, not letting him in. And the caption is them saying, don't let him in. He's going to change everything.
Yeah.
So kind of following up on what you said about Jesus, your diaconal ministry, the ministry, LGBT ministry here, what does that cartoon mean? He's going to change everything. Don't let him in.
I think I posted that cartoon, and it brought to mind, there's a song from the early 70s that Chris Christopherson did called Jesus Was a Capricorn. And there's a line on it that basically says, if he were to come down today, we'd just string him up again, And I tend to think that. I think, in a lot of ways, we, the church, and I'm not just talking about the hierarchy, not the deacons, the priests, the bishops. I'm talking about the church in general, the body of Christ, has become, in a lot of ways, the Pharisees of the first century. That we've fallen into this comfortable faith system that is certainly not the way that Christianity started out, but is the way it has evolved to become of a book of rules. It's in the Bible. The Bible says don't do that. And I truly believe that cartoon, there's more truth to that than I think a lot of us would like to admit to. We have so many members of the LGBT community and ministry here, and they're just really good people. And in a lot of ways, I give them credit because they're fighting a fight internally. They could just turn tail and run to a church that's more accepting of them, and yet they stay.
They stay Catholic.
They stay Catholic. They choose to stay,
yeah.
Because they know that there is a truth to the church that they can't find anywhere else. Even though they, in a lot of parishes, they are ostracized.
Deacon Don, what do you think that truth is that our LGBT friends find in the Catholic Church?
Well, the easy answer for me is the Eucharist. That no matter what is going on, and I think the LGBT community that chooses to stay within the church realizes this, that whatever is going on temporarily right now in the church, day to day, that the Eucharist is what makes it worthy to stay here. The church is administered by human beings, and every human being is flawed. And I think the LGBT community realizes that more than most, that these are human beings that run this church. But in this church, we find Jesus, and we have Jesus. We have Jesus through the Eucharist. We have Jesus through the body of Christ, it's accepting the LGBT community into the body of Christ, and opening the doors and building bridges to the LGBT community that strengthens the body of Christ. And I think they realize that, and that to them, that's worth staying for. That's worth fighting for. And that voice is getting louder and louder. And So yeah, I think, yeah.
So what you're saying is the LGBT Catholic finds Christ in the church, in her sacraments, in the Eucharist.
But this is their road. This
Right.
is their access to
Right.
God.
I went to Mass with you and Father Peter
Yeah.
and the group a couple weeks ago. And quite frankly, I was moved by the depth of spirit. I don't know how else to describe it. But I looked at people, and I was with my camera in the sacristy looking at people as they're receiving communion. And they truly received communion. The word I'm looking for is meaningful. A meaningful encounter with Christ.
Yeah. No, I am there. As a deacon, I on Sunday Mass I will be giving out communion as well, and I do feel, and you're right, giving communion to members of the LGBT community who are here. It is right. It is a meaningful experience for them, as much as it is for even those in our group who are maybe parents of gay children, or brother or sister of a gay child. This is a very meaningful experience for them. I think in the Eucharist they find hope. I think they realize that we are all broken in some degree, in some way, and it is that brokenness which makes us, I think, precious and beautiful. That shared, I can't even come up with the word, but that shared experience of brokenness, even though the areas in my life that may be broken are different from the areas in your life that may be broken, we acknowledge each other as flawed, as needing God's mercy, and as needing that help. And again, this community, which the church has for years pushed to the margins, for them to come here and say, yes, I need this Eucharist, I need this Mass, I need this community, to be a part of this community, makes it really even makes the Mass even more beautiful and even more special.
Speaking of the church and marginalizing, the official documents of the church on this issue, while being clear that every single human being must be respected and must be seen as a creature of God, made in the image of God, and having that dignity, LGBT or otherwise. But there's also some strong and, quite frankly, hurtful language used in the official documents of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of Father James Martin's book, Building a Bridge, on the pillars of respect, compassion, and sensitivity, and that he says that works both ways. From the hierarchy, the church, the official teaching office of the church toward LGBT, but it also works from the side of the LGBT
Right.
to the church.
Yeah.
What do you and the people you minister to and with do when they hear a homily, or someone approaches them after Mass, maybe even you, or makes a comment, even invoking some of the language of the official documents? How does the LGBT Catholic community deal with that?
If you have somebody telling you constantly that there's something wrong with you, you are intrinsically disordered, which is the term in the 1993 version of the Catechism, which is still pretty much the same catechism we are using today, that they are intrinsically disordered. It's hard for them to say, oh, okay, this looks like a welcome and inviting church, because there are priests who preach prejudice from the pulpit. There are deacons, bishops who preach prejudice from the pulpit, and that prejudice is not born out of maliciousness, but out of ignorance. So you may very well know a gay person, and that person may very well be in your life. They just haven't come out to you yet. So just that should keep you keep in mind what you say around public and in public and around other people, because you don't know who you're going to offend. And again, when you offend, you're knocking down the bridge on the other side. We can build a bridge halfway across the river. If the other half doesn't come, we're never gonna be together. And so that becomes very important, you know?
You've shared with me that your daughter came out as a lesbian and
Yes.
not too long ago.
No.
And it happened, she came out after you and Marcia had been involved in the LGBT ministry for some years. What did your daughter's experience bring to your presence in the group, to your ministry?
Know that what they are doing is one of the hardest things they can do in their life, because my daughter, we asked her, one of the first questions we asked her was, honey, how come you didn't tell us sooner? And her response to us was, I know you guys are open and accepting. I know you love me for who I am. And I know that everything was going to be great. But if there's 0.00001% chance that you're going to reject me, that's enough to keep me from coming out. And so there's a twofold thing to that. It's to educate, most importantly, families, parents. First of all, don't ask. Don't go up to your child and say, "Hey, are you gay?" That's not. They will come out to you in their own time when they're ready. But the other thing is when somebody comes out to you, just realize the great gift that is to you, that they trust you and love you so much that they feel comfortable coming out to you, and embrace that child. If you have an issue with it, if it's like, oh, I can't wrap my head around that, don't say anything that will damage your relationship. If all you can say is, honey, I don't understand it, but I love you anyway, do that and stop right there, because they are trusting you with a gift. They are trusting you with something that they feel comfortable telling you. And so when Olivia came out to us, we were like, cool, that's nice, good for you, that you've been able to realize who you are. A lot of us spend most of our life trying to figure out who we are. And Olivia has figured out this little part of who she is, And so we were proud of her for that. And we were proud of her for who she has become. It was like a great weight was lifted off her shoulders. And it was liberating for her.
As an ordained member of the church, as clergy, as a deacon, what do you bring to this ministry? What does a deacon bring to this ministry that might be a different flavor, a different shape than a layperson?
For want of a better term, legitimacy. You can have this ministry and it can meet in, somebody's house. But my being there, and even more so Father Peter O'Reilly, who's one of our priests here, for him being there, lets them know that this is really the way St. Lawrence Martyr feels. This is really the way we think church is, what church is that this community has a very vital, important voice in this body of Christ, and we welcome them and we embrace them.
Final question.
Sure.
The teaching of the official church is the same, and I've heard people say it's not going to change. It's at least at any time soon. The language that we spoke of earlier is still in the catechism and in the official documents. But at the same time, the church seems to be understanding more deeply the reality of LGBT Catholics. Deacon Don, where do you see this all going? What do you think the future has for us in the Catholic tradition?
We've made great strides. In this area alone, we've got churches up and down the coast that have LGBT ministry. We have members of the LGBT community as cantors, as lectors, as youth ministers. I think there's cautious movement forward, and it's positive. There's always, the line of a journey of a journey of 1,000 steps, or 1,000 miles begins with the first step. We're several steps into that journey of 1,000 miles, but we can still see where we started. So it's a matter of moving forward, continually moving forward. I don't know that in my life, and I'm not, seems like the big bugaboo is everybody thinks that LGBT inclusion is pushing for gay marriage in the church. I don't know that that will ever happen, but I would like to be able to bless a gay couple. You know, I can bless this microphone. I can bless your camera. I can bless the trees. I can bless you, but I can't bless a gay couple. Just that would be such a great opening for the LGBT community, and it would be such a great opening for them to start building that bridge from the other side, to start adding a few more bricks on their side, because they'll say, well, look what the church is doing. We are trying to change. And I think my kids' generation, starting with my kids' generation, I think their outlook on the LGBT community is different than what ours is, and the generations before us. I think with us growing up, we tended to focus on the sex act of the LGBT, you know, of a member of the LGBT community, and you know, that's kind of our focus. But I think our kids just see it as love, true love. That you know, we are here to love each other. We are called to love each other, and for two people to love each other is just a beautiful gift. And to try to suppress that love is sinful. You know, God, the gift of sexuality is a gift from God, and we're telling people that they're not allowed to use that gift. I mean, what kind of a judgment do we get for that? You know, in my ministry, I really try to err on the side of love, of is what are my actions, in my day-to-day actions, are they done out of love? And so I think as church, if we really kind of turn our focus on that, then the change may start to happen.